Like, I do guess that a lot of the world gets covered in data centers over time.
I think we'll see intelligence continue to scale all the way up to where, most of the power of the sun is harnessed for compute, and then ultimately most of the power of the galaxy.
But I don't know, because maybe put them in space.
All of the companies here are building just huge investments in the country in order to build out data centers and infrastructure to power the next wave of innovation. I think it's probably going to be something like, at least $600 billion through 28.
One of the estimates that I think is most likely is that data centers will require an additional 29 gigawatts of power by 2027 and 67 more gigawatts by 2030. An average nuclear power plant in the United States is 1 gigawatt. How many nuclear power plants can we make in 1 year where we're planning this 10 gigawatt data center? Gives you a sense of how big this crisis is.
I think that we might have AI smarter than any single human at anything as soon as next year. And then probably within 2030, probably AI is smarter than the sum of all humans.
I don't know, it sounds cool to try to build them in space.
Welcome to Computer Says Maybe Live. It's so nice to see you all. We are live at Climate Week, which I will be honest, I didn't really know what that was until very recently. But it turns out loads of people come to this city to talk about climate, environmental issues. And this year it seems like AI is majorly on the agenda. So we decided to go all in and hang out with friends and family. I will say my mother is here. If you want to find someone that can tell you about how irritating I was as a teenager, that knowledge is in this room. But we wanted to also take this opportunity to invite people that are working on the front lines of resisting the cavalier, ridiculous expansion of data centers around the United States. And not just to elevate local stories, but to elevate the local leaders who we need at this time and have them telling us directly what they want, what they see, what they think. Because I feel like the political vision that they bring to these conversations is essential for right now. So we are here to do that. Before we sort of double down in the US context, which is where a lot of these folks are coming from, we wanted to sort of set the stage a little bit about the global dimension of this question, particularly because Amba and I were just in Kenya for a week with lovely organizers from all over the world that are fighting basically the same fights, I would say. So should we start there, Amba, and explain a little bit about the things we have learned?
Yeah. We can. I do want to just say that this is like my first climate week where I was sort of more involved, and
she lives in New York.
I live in New York, but have somehow avoided all of this. But I think, like, just the one thing to say is that Climate Week this year, and a lot of the conversations that have been happening, many of you have been in some of those, have had 2025 energy in the best and worst ways. So we're no longer on the precipice of crisis and meekly planning for what we will do when it comes. We're pretty much living through it. And I think that has brought this like real talk from every quarter, whether it's the tech companies that no longer need to pretend to care about sustainability and net zero, or multilateralism and the international order is like taking its last gasps and struggling for relevance and to survive, really. But I think in that mode, what's actually been kind of exciting is that in the debris of whatever moment we're in, there's just been a whole lot more candor about. Seems like maybe the strategies we were investing in for the last some years were co-optable, and they were brittle in a very, I guess, in some ways almost by design. And so this is the moment to like figure out what the new strategy is. And the conversation we're going to have in a few minutes with the leaders we just mentioned, I think kind of illuminate the climate and AI conversations we need to be having, the strategies we need to be investing in. So I just wanted to name that, and just to even say that this is a conversation where it's going to be apparent to everyone in a second, but it is one that is rooted in the material, in local impacts, in affordability, and in communities that see like this AI moment as one of continuity, not rupture, in a much longer history of environmental racism, of corporate extractivism, and the solution space that is also on offer is wildly different. So I just want to name that I think this is why this conversation is vital. Nairobi, yeah, I mean, like, there is so much to say, and I guess the one thing that struck me was that both in the kind of the pattern of the problem, so this very opaque, undemocratic incursion into resource-stressed areas, and in the source of the resistance, which is rooted in neighborhood community organizations. Investigative journalism came up a lot in Nairobi across Brazil, Mexico, Kenya, India, right? Like there's definitely a unifying story, and also I guess the obvious note there is that there's connective tissue to build both within this country but also internationally.
Yeah, I mean, there were so many common elements, but I think in the different countries where people are being encountered by these big companies saying, we have a ton of money to just buy up all your stuff, and we're going to do that now, whether you like it or not. That pattern was definitely persistent across examples, but the way that communities were fighting back, I feel like there was some variety. And I don't know, do you want to talk a little bit about the Brazil example? Because I feel like this is a super interesting fight happening right now where I think it's TikTok is building a giant data center, or wants to build a giant data center in Brazil, and local communities are like, why we don't want that. But how does one resist a company that comes in and basically bewitches local policymakers saying, this is going to create a lot of jobs, this is what you want, this is the future really, and isn't it wonderful that you have an opportunity to be a part of that? But local communities have taken some really interesting actions to stop it from happening.
Yeah, and to be clear, these are indigenous groups that do not have official land title, and so the legal advocacy has been rooted in, firstly, making the claim that under international law, to which Brazil is a signatory, and then therefore it also via their constitution, that these groups have a say, they have to be consulted, and their consent must be required for any projects on their land. But in pursuing that creative legal strategy, again, I think there is a unifying legal theme, a unifying theme, which is that, and again, we're going to hear about this in a second, but there is a sort of whack-a-mole quality to data center resistance. You shut it down somewhere, it opens up somewhere else, or maybe it opens up in the same place in a slightly different way, or that kind of onslaught can feel kind of overwhelming and in some ways demotivating. But I think what a lot of folks here and in the conversations we were witness to in Nairobi are very clear about is that there needs to be the next phase, or the phase that we're entering is like, how do we push for those more structural, legal, and policy pathways that help just change the terms of the debate, so that we're not always starting from scratch. And that's obviously much harder said than done. It's not a new idea, it's just harder to push through. But it was interesting to see that that's where the conversation was moving.
Yeah, and it feels like we are starting to see some solution spaces that are thinking about this structurally. So rather than expecting every single community to go from knowing nothing about data centers to being expert enough to advocate and prevent them from being built, what would it look like to basically say, these are the conditions within which these companies can do this, so that communities aren't caught on the back foot as much as they are, and you don't have this whack-a-mole quality where industry has all the money in the world, all of the narrative backing wind in their sails, coming into these towns and saying, we want to build here.
Yeah.
And that's just not a winnable playing field. So thinking a little bit about these sort of structural, rights-based frameworks that might make it easier for communities to say no.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's kind of, we just wanted to touch a little bit on that global picture, because I think what ends up happening in these conversations is it becomes the US and then like everywhere else, rather than every single country has an interesting set of fights, and we recognize that, and I think we also want to do more work to talk to groups that are resisting in those countries. Yeah. But
I was just going to say, this also reminded me that last week we heard that maybe it actually was Brazil again, but the kind of the smell test around job generation figures, the reason, before they've done their own studies, they're relying on studies from the US to say, we're calling bullshit on these stats, like we don't think these job generation claims are actually going to pan out. So there are ways in which, even before you kind of create the structures, the cross-pollination is already happening, and especially the like hardest part of this, which is like the evidence gathering. There's so much to kind of borrow and draw from.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah.
No, I think there's a lot of that, and I feel like there are 3 people here who are deeply expert in all these things, and I'm really excited to have them come sit in these chairs right here. And actually, the first one, KD Miner, who is coming from Louisiana and has just taught me that the most recent project, or the figures that you quoted earlier, is that for every single job, one job that these data centers were meant to provide cost a $2 million tax subsidy. So when you start thinking about the trade-offs, KD knows so much and has been like amazing working with people to help them understand what the implications are of these data centers. So KD, join us.
KD.
And then when you heard, I think, the dumbest person in that clip at the beginning, Elon Musk, talking about it, we have KeShaun Pearson, who has been fighting against the work of XAI, which has basically just been poisoning communities in Memphis, and he's here to talk about that battle. So, KeShaun. And we don't have victories very often, which I know that I don't want to say victory fully because I know this is a fight that continues. But if you heard recently about a community in Tucson successfully pushing back against Project Blue, we have one of the core organizers who made that possible. So Marisol, do you want to join us?
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
This just got a lot better. Okay, so we just wanted to start giving you all space to talk a little bit about your work, about these fights, how you frame them, how you think about them. And I feel like maybe should we start with you, KD? You want to start at the end and let's come this way?
Yeah, and while I yap, we're going to pass around some paperwork so y'all can kind of get a sense of the types of secrecy behind these deals, right? And so I'm based down in New Orleans. I serve as the Community Solutions Manager for the Alliance for Affordable Energy. We're the state's only consumer advocate at the Public Service Commission. What that means is when a utility wants to do a thing, I scrutinize it. And so how I really got into this work is I'm nosy, y'all. Like I am nosy. And we were hearing rumors about something new, something big coming to Louisiana. But no one was really actually saying anything, right? And so another part of my work was I was working on carbon capture. And we built a permit tracker that allowed us to scrape the data and track the developments throughout the state. Y'all got on that tracker, and I just zoomed in on the approximate area, and that is how I discovered the Meta deal. At the time, it was just called Project Sucre. Some really just, Project Sugar, it sounds sweet, but it's not sweet, right? Nothing sweet about it as we're learning. And as you'll see from the paperwork, it's hard to be an intervener when this is what you're facing with, right? Completely redacted testimony. And so what we've been doing is, we pursued all the legal avenues we could. We filed 3 motions. First, to get them to be a party in the docket. Meta isn't even stepping up to the table in these conversations. They're relying heavily upon their subsidiary, Laidley in this instance. So one, we were trying to provoke them to be a party in the docket. The judge denied it. We also asked, right? We also asked them to, so they had this thing, they were asking to bypass the typical process of getting approval for power generation. There's an RFP process, it's meant to protect the ratepayer, and they wanted to bypass the entire thing. They were able to bypass the entire thing. They use sourcing from other states. Oh, well, we just got turbines quoted in Texas, so we'll just use those numbers, kind of just shuffling us through the paperwork. And then our Public Service Commission rushed the vote, and they voted 4-1 to approve 3 brand new gas-fired power plants, 2 sited in North Louisiana and 1 in Cancer Alley. And so our team has been hard at work to get the word out to folks. Hey, this is happening. This is what you can expect.
Amazing. Marisol, you want to share a little bit?
Yeah, totally. Okay, I'm Marisol. I'm coming from Autumn Land in Tucson, Arizona. Thinking about where our coalition was born, it started, so June 17th was the vote at the Pima County Board of Supervisors, where like so many of us gave impassioned speeches and then come to find out like when they show up to vote, they've already made their decision. It's too late to sway their mind at that point. So then like a chat was started the night before, a couple nights before that vote, and then on Friday of that week, we met up at the foot of Chumamock Hill, which is known as Tucson's birthplace. And just in that like open space, in that natural space, like we decided to start the coalition, and it started with like 20 people, and over 7 weeks, so many of us were working around the clock to like get the word out. There was a lot of canvassing, social media outreach, like all of the pieces that you know of to get the word out to the community. And the thing is, like, living in the desert, because water is such a, like, there is scarcity. I want to say, like, it does rain. We do have, like, plentiful drinking water, but there's this awareness of, like, because there's also a lot of homelessness in Tucson, like, you can see what it looks like to live without water. You see what those, like, material impacts are on people. And also at the border, water is used as a weapon to make people die instead of getting to this country. So whenever you talk to anybody, like, I would just go to the library, talk with people, and like within less than a minute, people are already like, no, I am against that. Who do I need to contact to let them know that I don't want this to happen? So because we had the gift of like a very clear path, like the county voted in favor of it, but now the city was gonna have to annex the land for the project to go through. So like being able to have that clear of a target was really helpful. And the other piece is that the developer did these community info propaganda shows, which were also facilitated by the city manager. So that was really interesting to see, like, our government very clearly in support of this, and then also the county and the city like pointing fingers at each other of like who was to blame for this. But because we had that space where public officials were there, they were listening, they weren't presenting, but they were like, our city council members were present, without rules of decorum, like, that are so restrictive in city council chambers, people were screaming. Like, there were some teenagers screaming for 2 hours straight. And I think that show of public opposition was so powerful, like undeniably powerful. And like, it's just so different from direct action in other ways. Like, especially this was happening in the summer. This got pushed through when most of Tucson's, like, a lot of the population is gone for the summer. That's just how people in Tucson live. So like, we really were working against the weather, working against those numbers, right? And they assumed that they could get it through, but the people really showed up. And if I can have like 30 more seconds. Yeah. Now, Project Blue, which similarly tries to have this name of like, ooh, watery oasis, like, they made a contract with TEP, this Canadian-owned power utility for Tucson, to try and still make the project go through, even though the land didn't get annexed, and that was supposed to be like a very important contingency of that contract of the sale going through. So I think it's just about like, these corporations don't want us to set the precedent of having success against them, but I have full faith that there are like actually multiple ways for us to finally stop them. And also we are broadening to build coalition with other people in Arizona, not only fighting AI data centers, but extractive industry at large.
Awesome. First, I gotta say, blessed to be here and thankful to be here. Thankful to everybody in Memphis, and especially my family. My mother, my father, Reverend Jason C. Pearson, Dr. Kimberly Owens Pearson. My mom just graduated this year. Give it to my mom. My brothers Jason, Tim, Justin, Jalen, and especially Tim. We lost my brother Tim December 1st of last year. And so I keep him in spirit every space I'm in. And so I just want to take a moment to recognize my beautiful family and my girlfriend Rachel, Corinne Payton. Can't leave her out. Y'all, my story is one that's an American story. It starts with enslaved people who find purpose and build community out of scraps. Boxtown was founded in 1863. and they used this scraps of boxcars to build actual homes. They were not annexed until the 1970s, and they had to sue the city of Memphis in order to get clean drinking water and sewage and city lights. These folks have been fighting for generations. Growing up in 38109 in Southwest Memphis, I noticed a smell since I was very young, but it's something I assume was being taken care of. Somebody was making sure the air was clean enough, right? Like somebody was making sure pollution wasn't consuming us and killing us. And so as I continued to grow up, we left Memphis, went to Northern Virginia, and I lost both of my grandmothers to cancer in their early 60s, right? And so naively, we thought it was microwaves. Has to be something that's going on. There has to be some kind of new technology that's causing this. But what we came to learn after fighting against a $1 billion pipeline that we beat, we learned about all these other fissures in our health and the health impacts. Our community has a cancer rate 4 times the national average, right? And our children have asthma at a higher rate than anyone in the nation, including deaths as well. Our story is one of exploitation, but consistent resistance. In Memphis, we consistently resist against being taken over, being muzzled, being silenced. And here, in this exact moment, we have the biggest malignant idiot, the most wealthy one as well, who is attempting to continue the same legacy of exploitation and suppression of Black sovereignty. It is one of the most beautiful places, but we continue to see it be targeted, continue to see it be devalued, underinvested in, and then targeted by folks who say they're going to bring economic investments. And so we've been up against the same thing. It's the propaganda. It's also using government officials to spread misinformation and myths about what they're doing. In Memphis, we have 2 facilities, Colossus 1 and 2, that are being built out. We've had to breathe the air of up to 33 methane gas turbines running at once, increasing our nitrogen oxide levels by 79% in 1 year. And this was done illegally, no permits, right? And so it is this continued exploitation, but we are continually resisting.
Thank you so much. So I wanted to sort of just start there so you have a sense of the breadth of the people and the organizing that these folks are doing and the expertise that they're accumulating as they do this, because I feel like they are the people we need to be listening to when we're thinking about not just what to do about resisting these data centers and this type of project, this type of colonial project, but also just sort of how to communicate to local communities who may be very excited about some of these projects. And I feel like you know, Marisol, you touched on it a little bit, how in conversations with people, the speed with which they understood the implications because of water. But I feel like I'd love to hear a little bit from you all on what you found is working, or in conversations with people in your community, helping them understand the stakes of these projects. Just a little bit on that would be really great to hear, because I think the more we can learn from you about how to message, I think the better we are likely to succeed at communicating the implications of these things. Anybody want to jump in? I mean, Katie,
I can definitely jump in real quick. One thing that we've been able to communicate successfully, and hopefully I was able to communicate it in the brief moments we already had, is that the public health impacts are severe when these turbines are powered by polluting fossil fuels like methane gas. And so that messaging has been a unifying one, because unfortunately in Memphis, we have folks who either have asthma or are developing it because there is no one reducing the pollution. We deserve to breathe clean air just like everybody else. And so that message and those stakes are very real, because unfortunately everybody knows someone with allergies or asthma. We're an asthma capital in the United States of America, so we have higher rate of asthma and allergies due to this pollution, due to the nitrogen oxide creating low-level ozone, which is smog, right? And if you just want to know what it's like, if you've ever been anywhere on a hot day and you tried to breathe and it's hard to breathe, that's what it's like in Memphis consistently. And you can even see it in the sky. And so messaging around what our stakes are health-wise has really transcended and been more of a unifying message that folks have been able to really grasp.
Do you want to say a little bit? I mean, I know that you said that because Musk is such a wealthy dude, that when he kind of waltzes into a community, people presume that the wealth that he brings is going to enrich them through the process of these kinds of projects. So if somebody comes up to you and says, "This is great. These are like tech jobs, and this is a tech guy who has money. Like, don't we want him in our town?" Like, how do you engage folks on that question?
Right. It's an assumption of transferable wealth, right? That's what I think. Like, is it like through osmosis? Like, because he's around me, like, we're gonna get richer, guys, right? But that's not how it works, right? And it is exemplified in the fact that he doesn't even pay his bills on time, right? XAI is still behind on their MLGW light bill. Now, if you from Memphis, you know as Memphis Light Gas and robbers, okay? These people, they're gonna cut your lights off immediately, right? But Elon Musk is able to do things in that way. But it's also important that we break out all of these myths, right? Data centers are not software companies, right? Software companies, you need engineers, you need marketing, you need sales, right? Data centers are huge warehouses of computer servers where there's like 2 people walking around just making sure all the lights are on, right? And so it is not materially going to economically benefit anyone. These facilities, I call them energy vampires. That's all they do. They just suck up a ton of energy, and they don't provide you the economic benefits that folks are looking for. But it's easy, right, when it is the most wealthy person on paper in the world that is providing so much misinformation and creating this myth around the economic development that we're not actually seeing. And it's really insidious because in Memphis, we need it, right? We are in one of the poorest metropolitan areas in the country. And to dangle a carrot of economic development, of stability financially, right? We've been economically strangled for so long and needed a breath of fresh air. And so it is cruel to use the myth of economic prosperity to push forward a project that is only going to bring pain and pollution. And so what we've learned is that this facility, the long-term jobs for Memphians are janitorial, they are security jobs, and they're about maybe 15 to 20 for these 1 million square foot facilities. Even the construction jobs have been contracted out to folks from Texas. Right, so he's bringing in his own construction workers. So that's the myth, and so right. So that's the myth, and we had to continue to break down those myths about these projects.
Totally.
Is it okay if I go next?
Please.
Yeah, thank you, KeShaun. It's the same problems everywhere, right? Like one of the difficult barriers that I think everybody is seeing is how developers make relationships with unions months ahead of time to like get the buy-in and then get them to show up with signs to the different community sessions that they hold. But at one of those events, I stopped and talked with this man who was there as a representative in favor of the project, and half of what he said to me was against it. It was just his own experience of, I have grandkids, I don't have retirement savings, I commute to Phoenix every day to be able to work in construction because there's not development happening here in Tucson. So the way we're thinking about that and answering that is facilitating community dialogues and town halls surrounding like what kind of economic development do we actually want to see in Tucson? What is beneficial to the community? I mean, like, guys, affordable housing is a number one, super easy one that we just need to also like build the funding structures to support that. So for me and many of us in the coalition, the way we're seeing that is like citizens initiatives to try and, I'm like, I don't know who's watching this, but to try and build like maybe a tax structure that helps us to fund jobs like that, to fund housing. There are a lot of also like just serving each other in community. There's a lot of need in different jobs that are very dignified, that can pay well if we fund them right. So just thinking about those pieces, but also like listening, because all of this is predicated upon scarcity, be it real or manufactured, and like listening to someone who is voting in favor of a project out of fear. Like I saw this at a citizen advisory committee. It was like 15 people who, like almost all of them, voted in favor of a data center because of like, I could just see it in their eyes, like they got it, but they were also like, I need income. I need to be able to keep living where I'm living and have a good job. So listening and building relationships so that it's not like I'm coming out here and I'm telling you exactly what I know and you need to know it too. Like, what do you need? What do you want to see? And I think that relational way of doing our work is absolutely critical if we are to like succeed in building a large-scale coalition against data centers. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
That part. Yeah, when they come in talking all of this infrastructure, right? But when I think of like true community infrastructure, I think of mutual aid, right? I think about feeding your neighbors, right? Or when a hurricane comes and folks need to evacuate, you bring your neighbor with you, right? And so they're almost bludgeoning us with our desperation, right? One of the things we heard the most often was, this is the poorest corner of the state. The poorest.
Yep.
Right? And right now, as we're talking about this, Louisiana is seeing like the 4th highest increase in energy prices, right? We use more energy than anywhere else in the country because we can't hold the energy, right? And so when we should be advocating for things like energy efficiency and weatherization, like things that we know work, instead we're rerouting our resources and our attention into these fever dreams of very rich men who will never step foot in these properties, right? And so it's really disheartening to see that happen when so much pain is happening, when people are being disappeared and taken and their lights are being disconnected, but somehow we've got all this money to build all this stuff that does not work, quite literally does not work. And it is displacing true solutions that community could be using.
Amazing. Okay, when you put it like that, I'm convinced.
Right.
These data centers sound bad.
Yeah.
But Amba, I know you, like, when we were talking a little bit about how this extends beyond physical infrastructure. Like, these centers are being used for things in these communities.
Yeah, exactly.
And, so do you want to?
Yeah, I'd like turning to the question of like, what are we building this for? So I think outside of the promise, the kind of economic development mythology, there's also the broader mythology around AI as progress. Like you're either with us or you're like helping China win some race. We're not sure for what or towards what, but like there's all of those atmospherics, which I feel like has definitely, whether it's the federal, national, or at the local level too, it's definitely part of the calculus that's informing or causing a chilling effect for policymakers and local officials. But equally, I guess I was really curious, like what are the ways in which the mounting evidence of AI-driven harms or AI-related harms, how is that, if at all, playing into organizing strategy and equally the kind of like bigger picture question of more and more people in this country and all over the world are seeing AI companies as part of what we're now naming as the tech oligarchy, and like how, if at all, is that? But yeah, I wanted to start with you, Marisol, because I'm really interested in sort of particularly ICE's use of AI and border surveillance and how that showed up in Project Blue Resistance.
Yes, it was a really important piece that we made sure to prioritize in our messaging, like, just because it's palpable. It's palpable in the community, the fear and the actual like effects of ICE being able to like surveil, have so much presence, like both physical and technological, and like I think there was also a connection that this surveillance is also being used, just like these same projects, these same programs are used to select targets both at the border and in Gaza. Like I have been to the border wall, newly constructed, only once. And when I was there, it just, like its presence was so impactful. It really felt like Earth stacked against Earth in a way that it didn't want to be there. But knowing that all of the technologies that are being used to securitize our border have been tested on Palestinians. And also, I recently learned this, that like the surveillance, every piece of information that US Border Patrol is collecting is shared with the Mexican government. And because of corruption, that means the cartels have access to like everything. Anything about you if you've crossed the southern border, the cartel also knows about you. So just thinking about like how it's a falsehood, right? All of this securitization is falsehood. The fact that these programs or these technologies like beget more surveillance, like it requires surveillance to learn to do what it needs to do, and then it serves more surveillance. There's just thinking about like these broader harms, I think was an important entry point for a lot of activists in Tucson, or people who just care about other humans in Tucson. I'm like, yeah, I'll pass it. Yeah, thank you.
And Katie, I feel like New Orleans has been in the news recently for facial recognition, but like its relationship to Palantir in particular, but also a much predictive policing. How, if at all, does that figure in this fight?
Yeah, absolutely. Louisiana is still the prison capital of the world, right? And when ICE was infiltrating or has been infiltrating communities, they were shipping folks down to Louisiana for a reason, right? And so we were kind of the testing grounds of the country down in New Orleans way back in 2012, right? When the gift of philanthropy brought us Palantir, right? And so they were testing our faces and facial recognition. And it took our city council intervening, not really successfully, but it took them intervening. And we come to find out they used it 6 times and got 6 false positives, right? And so how many folks had been, how many of their lives had been completely uprooted from bad software, right? And then if you're walking in New Orleans, like literally there's a camera on every single corner. We are now one of the most surveilled cities in the world, right? All that software lives somewhere, and there are very bad actors who are participating, right? Another investigation found that there was an entire secret police network that they were using and running facial recognition. And if a bolo or something came up, they would just text each other from these secret cameras, this secret camera network, and that's how they were making arrests, and it would never make it to the gist, right? And so there's these compounding issues, but when you look at it, Louisiana really is the nexus of all of the things happening at once.
Yeah, I mean, I like the question of what is AI used for is also it's kind of crazy because the grand narratives also have their version of the benefit story, and it's usually AI is somehow somewhere down the line going to cure cancer, which is especially cynical when you think about what KeShaun just told us. And so I guess turning to you, KeShaun, I'm curious too, because the playbook that you describe of what happened in Memphis and with XAI, it feels like in some ways the rest of the country became very familiar with that playbook, with what happened with DOGE and the Department of Government Efficiency takeover. So I guess how do you see your fight as like connecting to the broader political battlefield? I have to stop with the military metaphors, but
Trust me, it is so hard to disengage this AI development from militarism, right? XAI, the facility is in Memphis, right? The facility is polluting the folks in Memphis and our air, but they just got rewarded a Department of Defense $200 million contract, right, to use Grok, and they created a suite of apps for military use. And so this connection between government at the federal level and our local issues is directly, there is no gap. There is no gap. This is happening in real time. And so for us, it is this constant watching our city become an experiment. DOGE cut funding for the Boys and Girls Club as a part of Elon Musk's idea. Elon Musk then got on Twitter a couple of months later, and said that we're going to open 2 facilities in Memphis, Boys and Girls Clubs. It's my charity to open 2 Boys and Girls Clubs for 2 years. And so it is this act, it is the causing the problem and then offering a solution. And the game that they're playing, it's costing people real time, and it's costing us our real lives. And so it's just disgusting to me. It's cruel, but it's something we have to pay attention to, because these things are not so separate. The environmental racism and the environmental injustice is not separated from the oppressive, surveil nature and militaristic nature of the decisions happening at the federal level, the rollbacks that are happening, but also the benefits, right? Listen, if I was money laundering, I would work for the government and then get a contract. So, I mean, that's what I'm seeing, so.
I feel like, can I pick up on the, so 2 out of the 3 of you live in cities where Trump has sort of soft floated sending the National Guard. And I think joining up this local and federal fight, I'd love to hear from each of you, like when you think about the local organizing you're doing, how you see those local fights kind of rolling up into this larger American political moment.
Yeah. I'll let you go first, Kate.
I don't know if you've ever been to New Orleans, but it truly is a magical space. Steeped in a history of resistance. Mm-hmm. Like, it's some fighters down there. That's right. Yeah. Like, they can come if they want, right? That's what the folks are saying. Come, you can come if you want. Can you fight? Like, can you beat my ass? Like, seriously, like we've, again, this is a 300-year-old city that has literally seen if we hung our hats on everything that was inevitable, right? Everything that was happening, we would be in a much different space, right? But because we've steeped ourselves in authenticity, right, and radical community care, mutual aid, the history of second lines and social aid and pleasure club, community is the center of New Orleans. And so you can send in what you want. Okay, how is that any different than our already daily lives, right? We have stop and frisk, right? We are poor Black people in a city where the state won't even allow us to get more tax revenue from tourism, right? So when you have all these compounding factors, like what else could you do, dude? What else? Can you fight?
That's real. So when I think about this threat, right, to send a National Guard, and what it really harkens to me is that instead of learning, right, from mass incarceration, where we did all of this crime, law and order, and it failed, right? Well, it failed us, Black people, Black men specifically, and Black women as well. But it benefited who, right? And so this continued militarization and this, what I call the Confederate experiment that is happening in Tennessee with the supermajority at our state legislature that is against free will and the First Amendment for some, while protecting it, and especially the Second Amendment for others. Memphis ain't no stranger, right, to combining militarism and social issues, and especially environmental justice. They killed Dr. Martin Luther King because he came down to Memphis and marched with sanitation workers who were striking, right? The I Am a Man March in 1968. And so the National Guard was pushed right after that, right? Now, the Black people need to be taken off the streets, need a curfew, right? Have to be watched. And so it is this idea that the government and corporate-inspired government chill free speech, chill the ability for people to protest against what's happening. It is not far-fetched to see how protesting against XAI and its leader who was at Doge and this new National Guard development are connected, right? It is this continued oppressive nature of silencing and undermining Black sovereignty, Black leadership, and ultimately Black people. Because if I can poison you, right, and pollute your air but then also bring in a National Guard to protect us and not you, to bring more fear, to bring more silence. That's that experiment. That's the next iteration of deconstruction. And we're not standing for it.
Amazing.
Can I have a redo? I have a much more eloquent answer this time.
Your first try was really good, but feel free. Yeah.
No, I'm good.
Marisol, any thoughts on this one?
I do. I'm just reflecting on like the privilege that I have as a white person, and also like as a person living in a city that doesn't have like any of these like targets, like really strategic ways of harming people. So like I invite everyone in here to sit with those realities, those lived experiences that we do and don't have. But the gift of this horrible time, of this administration and all of the things moving at this moment, is that it's enlivening a lot of people to become participants in activism that
That's right.
previously it was like so easy to just like not pay attention at all. And I'm hoping that people are also looking back into the histories and learning about like, oh, maybe I should have been more participatory before. But I think like our like moment in the movement was born out of like people already being involved in the resistance to ICE activism happening in Tucson. So yeah, I just wanted to name that pattern that I think is happening everywhere here. I'm thankful for that.
Yeah.
And we have each other now.
We have
Right.
each other.
We do.
They messed up.
Right,
Y'all
right.
messed up.
Teamwork. The other thing I want to add is that historically these are places that they haven't invested in, right? And they have,
Disinvested.
you would right. You would invest in gas plants, right? You would invest in these billion-dollar projects that don't materially benefit the people who live there. And so we need investment. We don't need occupation, right? To have cameras on every corner, to be over-policed, right? And over-jailed. We need the money that y'all coming up with to pay for all of these data centers. Why is it not going to public transit? Why is it not going to housing? Why is it not going to a sustainable ecosystem that will benefit us all?
Grid stability. Wow.
What? Right.
We can prevent blackouts?
Exactly. I mean, to me, it's intentional. Like you're intentionally not investing in light rail, right? You're intentionally not investing in raising the damn minimum wage, right? Apparently, y'all have the money.
$7.25 in Louisiana.
Right?
Still.
And so, right. It's this intentional effort to provide a mythology around a technology, right? It is this idea of technical determinism. Like the technology is going to save us. We literally are failing an open book test. Like that is exactly what's happening. We're failing an open book test with AI. Like we have the solutions, we have the answers. They are not being invested in. They are not the wisdom, right? Learning from history is not happening. We lived through, well, not me, but this country has been through the industrial era, right? We know what it's like when power consolidates around rich people who believe that this invention is going to do everything and be the best thing since sliced bread, and it's not. And then who lives with the fallout? Who lives in these sacrifice zones? Shout out to Mustafa, Santiago Ali, for that language. But now we're looking at digital redlining, where those same communities who suffered from the factories are now suffering from this new technology. It is not innovation. If it shackles you to fossil fuels again. That's just the truth. And so if your data center folks aren't as ambitious as Elon Musk, and they didn't seek to build a power plant right next to the facility, they are still contributing to the demands on the grid that are forcing these folks to reopen coal plants, to bring more gas turbines to our country. We don't need the pollution. If anything, we need investments in clean energy, we need investments in people, and we need investments in progress that looks like health equity, And that's just not happening. Sorry, y'all.
I mean, KeShaun for president. But I do want to end on a note of hope, because I feel like you all have, I think, more positive visions of where things could go. I mean, we're hearing some of that, and even as you described this open book test, like these answers are clear. But so I wanted to ask each of you sort of something that is making you feel hopeful. I feel like it's maybe a nice place to end, and I get to go first. I'm going to cheat. And I think meeting you all has been one of the most uplifting experiences I have had in months. It's just been so nice to get to know you over the last few days and like just hear your vision for where we might go, hear your analysis on what's happening, and it's just been such a pleasure having you here and like getting to know you all this week. So that's I'm going first. Amba.
There's going to be a theme here. I will say that this conversation has felt so like profoundly like optimistic. I like my, it really like thank you all for your leadership and for like finding ways to talk about all of this that just really gets, it hits viscerally, and that's what this space has been lacking for so long. I also just, in what you all have said, can tell that this is the version of the conversation that is most dangerous to the malignant idiots and is kind of what should light up our strategies. So thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go next. Y'all, we've been through this before, right? After the unfortunate assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King, we had the civil rights bills passed. After what folks had to experience in California with the deaths from smog, we got the Clean Air Act and we got the EPA, right? We continue to meet the moment. There is no revolution coming. This is it, right? Say it with me, I am a revolutionary. One more time, I am a revolutionary. And that's what it's gonna take, is participation. Everybody in here has to participate. If you don't have a data center, you will. And if you don't have a data center in the next 5 years, you should still be involved in a data center fight. You and those people in your group chat, I know you got them. They should be involved. They should know that you are here and that you care about what's happening here. They should know about what's going on in Memphis, because what's going on in Memphis is just a prototype for what will happen everywhere else. But I'm gonna tell you this. I know Mama Maxine, I know Miss Pearlie, right? I know all of them are watching, and that is what I believe. I believe that the people who have seen this happen before, have seen us go through these times and come out better, more intelligent, more transformed. That is what is going to happen. I believe in every single person in here. I believe in our human spirit. Hope is real. Hope molecule, there is a hope molecule, right? But it only is activated if you move. We cannot stay still in this moment. We can't be quiet. We're not going to be able to write enough or pontificate enough or theorize enough to make real change happen. It will only happen by us doing, knocking on doors, making phone calls, putting pressure where it needs to be. And we have to continue to do that together. We are all the torchbearers of hope for one another and for our future. So that's why I'm hopeful, because y'all here. I'm hopeful because of these folks up here on the stage and everybody we all connected to. I believe in us. They're about, what is it? You got Meta, blah, 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 right? It's about 5, some of them.
7.
It's more of us in this room.
Can they fight?
It's more of us online, right? So we got them outnumbered. And so people power is what's gonna change this thing. And so I'm excited to be on this journey of success because we gonna win. Thank y'all.
One thing that gives me hope is how like the unexpected feature of data center people targeting our communities is that it connects across political divides. Like people, like I've met some very committed Republicans who are also enraged about being targeted for data centers. So like, it's giving us this medicine that we need as a community in this nation state to like be together against something, and then actually realize in conversation that we are the working class and we actually all have shared needs and opinions besides like whatever is fed to us as the things that divide us. So, and also, like, really the Spirit moves in this, in all of us. Like, I think it's out of necessity. Like, this is, it is super, like, critical that we win this fight in all the little pieces that make it. And to also continue to fight against this notion of inevitability.
Come on.
Both inevitability that this future is gonna happen, or the opposite, like hyper optimistic, like, oh, well, things will be okay, right? No, like you said, it takes labor. It takes labor, and it takes paying the laborers who make this possible, right? Like I said, those 7 weeks of working around the clock, not a single person got a single penny for that work. So just thinking about like how you can support the people who are doing that work in your community if you're not able to be the one on the front lines. Yeah, thank you. Go ahead.
So at my core, I am a hater.
Come on. Talk to him. Yeah, the biggest.
Fight like really drives me, y'all. And at a time where like leadership is not meeting the moment, right? I recognize that it's going to be the haters, right? That are really going to get us up out of this, right? Like we are going to be the ones to rally the troops, right? So bring back hate, right? Be the person in the audience, yes, baby, loudly booing, put your thumb down, like thumbs down emoji. Like that energy is sustaining. It really is. And it's going to be y'all watch, I'm telling you, y'all gonna say KD said it. The spite, the anger, the righteousness is what's going to carry us, right? And so I'm excited, like the next phase of this, like this is our first link up, right?
Yeah.
Imagine the 3 of us in a month, right? Having gathered the experiences and perspectives from around the country and the world. Y'all, we got this. Like, this is our fight, and we are going to meet this moment.
Okay, so I think that's it for this, but I want to quickly thank a couple of people before we say goodbye to our friends on the live stream. The first is to Luminate Foundation, who sponsored all of this and made this happen.
Yeah, Luminate.
So thank you. The second is to Amba for co-hosting. This is lovely. And Sarah and Anna now. We have other few friends who are co-hosting after the happy hour, and they're going to have a chance in just a second to introduce themselves too. But for these purposes, thank you, Amba, for being here. And I just want to massive round of applause for these 3 fantastic. Okay, so we're going to say bye to the people on the internet. Thank you for coming. This was great. Yeah. Sorry you don't get to hang out.
Definitely forgot that we were.
It's the biggest webcam I've ever seen, sitting in that corner over there.
You all are the visuals.
Okay, now that we're alone, isn't this great? Okay, so we now are going to get to spend some time with each other and hang out.